Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we are rounding out week 6 of the 2025 college football season. Today, we're going to be talking about the Saturday night slate. So we're going to break down all 7 games that are on the DraftKings night slate, tell you what you can expect from each game, as well as who needs to be in or out of your DFS lineups, as well as any angles for player props and bets here on these games. So if you have not already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We have a Saturday main slate video that is out, as well as a Friday night slate video that is out, and we're going to be trying to do the same every single week. Now, I am entering my busy season because, as I mentioned here on the podcast before, I am a high school teacher and coach 2 sports, both girls flag football and varsity boys basketball. And so I'm starting to enter my busy season a little bit, but I can promise I'm going to get out content for every single slate that I'm able to do research for. And so if you subscribe, you will be able to have access to all of that, as well as you'll know when we go live. Week we are changing up the schedule a little bit. We're going live Friday night around 9:30 Eastern time, and so make sure that if you want to join in on that to talk about the Saturday main slate, you join in on that. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. We got 7 games to break down, and honestly, this isn't the worst night I've ever seen. It's not the best either. Let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, so game number 1 is why did they have to include this on the slate special? It is UNLV heading to Laramie to take on Wyoming. UNLV is 3.5-point favorites with a game total of 49.5 points, meaning the implied score is about 26-23 in favor of the Running Rebels. Now, this is an interesting spot because I truly feel like UNLV's defense is really bad, but I think their offense for a G5 level is really good. So it's really kind of hard for me to kind of parse through that and kind of reconcile my thoughts on this team and where they fit into DFS. And then also they are heading to Wyoming in altitude. This is not like unfamiliar territory for a Mountain West team like UNLV, but it gets windy in Laramie. And so if the wind picks up, that'll definitely dampen the offensive output for this game. And so I think this game has a really wide range of outcomes. I think you've got a bad defense in UNLV. I think you've got bad weather and not a great offense in Wyoming. So this game could shoot out. It could not. We'll kind of see how it goes. But like I said, I think UNLV's defense is pretty bad. And I think there's an angle to this game shooting out. So on the UNLV side, though, they do have a pretty solid quarterback. His name's Anthony Columbia. Previously played at Virginia the last few years, and he's been pretty solid for UNLV. I mean, he does have a good amount of rushing upside in the Dan Mullen offense, especially now that Alex Orji is out for the season. But he's averaging well over 3x value for his current salary. Pretty consistent totals, over 21 DraftKings points. I don't think this is a bad play at all. And I think the fact that he does have a rushing upside does help the fact that if it does get windy in Wyoming, then he'll be able to score fancy outputs with something other than his arm. At the running back position is one of my favorite running back plays. It's Jaden Thomas of UNLV. Is their lead back by quite a wide margin. And he's got over 24 DraftKings points in 2 games this season. He is never going to be a back that just gets like 30 carries in a game. He's not that kind of guy. He's not built like that, but he's a guy that gets usage in the passing game. He rips off long runs, and he's just able to score a lot of fantasy points in that way. $6,900. I think he's one of the best running back plays on the entire slate. And I think this is a really good spot for him, especially if it does in fact get windy and the UNLV offense feels the need to run the ball as opposed to throw it. His backup is Kevon Lee, who is a transfer down from a Power 5 team. He's not bad. He sees a decent amount of carries as well, 24 in the season. Scored 2 touchdowns. I don't think he's like the best play on the slate. I wish he was a little bit cheaper because Jaden Thomas is clearly the RB1. But if you're looking to get a little bit different, Kevon Lee would be an option, especially if this game does get windy and they don't want to throw the ball. At the wide receiver position, there's only one guy we need to talk about for UNLV. It is Jaden Bradley. He is by far the leader on the season for UNLV in targets. He has 2 games over 20 DraftKings points, which is really good for somebody of his salary. And I really don't have a whole lot of interest in anybody else on UNLV. They sit in 27 targets on the season through 4 games. Nobody else on the team has more than 16. So I just don't think this is a great spot for anybody else. And I think Bradley is the guy if you're looking to play UNLV wide receiver. You can definitely build out Calandria and Bradley stacks. Now on the Wyoming side, we've seen Wyoming be a better offense before than they are right now, but right now they're kind of they're just mediocre. I mean, Caden Anderson's the quarterback. He hasn't had a game over 15 DraftKings points this season. Hard to get excited about that, but like I said, the UNLV defense is pretty bad. So why not get one of the running backs, which is an interesting situation in my opinion, because you have Samuel Harris and Sam Scott, who are about 50-50 in terms of carries. Now, Samuel Harris did have the better last game against Wyoming where he had 19 carries, put up 15 DraftKings points, but Sam Scott's actually ahead in total carries, right? It just seems that the usage has flipped in the recent games. So I think both of them are playable. Obviously, Harris does seem like the guy moving forward, but at the same time, Scott's been productive. Scott's had 2 really good games. I don't get why there's such a big gap in terms of price. I think I might be willing to roll the dice on them, especially considering I do think that this UNLV defense can really be had on the ground. And so I do think that they're viable options. The wide receiver position, they've got one guy I'm willing to play. It is Chris Durr Jr. He is by far the most targeted Wyoming receiver. 33 targets through 4 games. That's a little over 8 a game. Really, really good. 3 games over 15 DraftKings points. That's really good for a guy whose salary is $4,800. And when you look at what they've done, his 2 lowest scoring games have been games where it's been in windy Wyoming, but they've both been 15.4 and 9 DraftKings points. Neither of those would kill you on a slate. And if he finds the end zone, then he's going to be pretty good value, right? So if you're looking to take advantage of this UNLV poor defense, Chris Durr Jr., the 2 running backs, Harrison Scott, there's definitely ways to do that. Next up, we've got Texas Tech taking on Houston. Texas Tech is 11.5-point favorites with a game total of 51.5, meaning the implied score is about 31-20 in favor of the Red Raiders. Y'all, I got to be honest, I just don't really like playing guys in games with Houston. The Willie Fritz style is in full effect at Houston. They are going to ground and pound. They are going to run the clock, control time of possession, play good special teams, and they are going to look to get you stopped and off the field defensively, right? I just don't think that Houston is going to create a whole lot of good game environments for DFS, bottom line. And now Texas Tech is the one that's going up against him. They've got Baron Morton at quarterback. He is the starter. He did get injured in the Utah game, but he's apparently back. He'd been pretty consistently above 22 DraftKings points every single game, but Texas Tech hadn't played anybody until they played Utah, and so it's really hard to get a grasp on what he's going to do. Looking at this slate as a whole, just looking at all the options at the quarterback position, I'm kind of good on Baron Morton going into this game environment, knowing that he hasn't really played against any sort of level of competition. I just don't think it's a good spot to pay that much for him. At the running back position, Texas Tech has been using 2 guys. Quentin Joyner got injured for the season. They've been rolling with Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, and I still feel the exact same about him that I did in the preseason. Dickey is probably going to get a little bit more volume, a little more usage in the red zone, but Williams is a guy who's more likely to break off a big play. So how would that kind of play into the game flow for this game? I would kind of rather bank on the guy that is a big play threat like Williams, because I think that against the Houston defense, it's unlikely that you're going to get there via volume. So I just think that Williams to me has a little more upside. I'm probably not playing either side of it though. At the wide receiver position, Texas Tech does have some solid options. I just think they're really affordable. They really only throw to 4 guys: Terrence Carter, Reggie Virgil, Coy Eakin, and Caleb Douglas. And to me, every time you have an offense that's somewhat condensed like that, you got to be interested in the passing offense. Virgil is the target leader on the season with 27, followed by Carter with 21. But Caleb Douglas is right behind with 20, and Coy Eakin is right behind with 18. So it's a fairly evenly distributed split amongst those 4. Reggie Virgil, we have seen have the kind of the big game against Utah where he went 6 for 72 and a touchdown. Coy Eakin has the biggest game out of any of them all season when he got 28.9 against Oregon State. I think they're all in play because they're all cheap, but again, you're really kind of hoping that with this being kind of a poor game flow, that you are going to catch lightning in a bottle and have a guy have a monster game or catch a touchdown or 2. Now, on the Houston side, this Texas Tech defense is one of the most expensive defenses in all of college football with how much they paid for all the guys out of the portal. I don't think this is exactly a great spot for them either. Connor Wigman is the quarterback, and he's just super consistently been churning out solid but unspectacular DraftKings performances. In between 19 and 29 DraftKings all season long. He does get used as a runner in this offense, but like I've been saying, Houston is very unlikely to produce environments that are really good for DraftKings points. And Connor Wigman is kind of a victim of that as the quarterback of Houston. Shocker. At the running back position, they do have a guy I like. It's Dean Connors. Mean Dean is the workhorse running back for this team. Over 13 carries in every single game. 1 game over 30 DraftKings points. He is a guy that would be the pathway to Houston scoring a lot, in my opinion, because he is such a workhorse and because I do think that you can run right at this Texas Tech defense. We haven't really seen them tested in that way. So Connors will be probably the best play on this Houston offense, in my opinion. But I am willing to target some of these receivers. Tanner Koziel, the tight end, is just the most consistent receiving option for them so far this season. But you've also got Stephon Johnson as well as Amari Thomas, and they're both big play threats. They're both home run threats. There's high likelihood that one of those guys is going to break off a big play. High likelihood that Koziel is going to get peppered with 7-8 targets. So I do think that all three of those receivers are going to be in play for me as I start making my player pool. Next up, we've got Mississippi State traveling to Kyle Field to take on Texas A&M. Now, I think this is a pretty juicy game. Texas A&M's 14.5-point favorites with a game total of 56.5, meaning the implied total is about 35-21 in favor of the Aggies. And for Mississippi State, we were right and wrong about them against Tennessee. And what I mean by that is I was all in on game stacks of that Tennessee-Mississippi State game. The problem was I played it through the quarterback position and the wide receivers. Blake Shapen did not have a great game in that game because he only threw for one touchdown and he rushed for negative 21 yards. But the running back position with Fluff Bothwell was great. Fluff Bothwell is turning into the workhorse running back for this team. 23 carries in that Tennessee game, put up 29.6 DraftKings points. We've already seen Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame this year go for 30 DraftKings points against Texas A&M, so it can be done. And I do think that this is a Mississippi State. I don't think that they're solely just this Jeff Lebby, like chuck and duck offense. You can definitely play a running back from it, and I still think you can play Shapen from it as well. At the wide receiver position, good news, they only really throw to 3 guys. That is what we like to hear and like to see when we are playing college football DFS. Anthony Evans is the target leader season with 32. Brennan Thompson is slightly behind at 29, but he has a higher average depth of target. And then third on the team in targets is the tight end Seydou Traore, who did score the lone receiving touchdown for Mississippi State last week. Of course, I only played Evans and Thompson, and so I didn't get to take advantage of that. Seydou Traore at a tight end is the minimum $3,000. That has interest from me. Thompson at $3,700 has interest from me. Anthony Evans, $5,100 has interest from me. Anytime you get a pretty condensed passing offense and a pretty good game environment, that's a pretty good shot you want to take. Now, on the Texas A&M side, I still have concerns about Marcel Reed. I don't think I'm alone in this. He hasn't really had a big running game like he did last year, and I still have concerns about his accuracy. And if anybody wants to be like, well, did you not watch the Notre Dame game? He was great in the Notre Dame game, threw 360 yards. Yeah, well, Notre Dame made life easy for him. Notre Dame played a lot of man coverage where it was just, oh, look, don't beat his man. Let me put it out there. Oh, look, Mario Craver beat his man. Let me put it out there. There wasn't a whole lot of reading. It wasn't asking to put balls in tight windows with multiple closing defenders. It was just, hey, where's my fast guy? Right over there. And I just have concerns about him operating an offense against a team that's going to be primary zone coverage and is going to be an SEC caliber defense. I don't know. And to me, the obvious counter argument will be, well, look at last year when he had all those games where he ran for all those yards and touchdowns. Well, wouldn't that be where he would score his fantasy points? He hasn't done it this year. So to me, it just creates a really tough click for Marcel Reed. I'm going to click it because I think this is a great game environment. I do think that they could end up being able to run it up on Mississippi State, but it's not without risk because I do have those concerns about Marcel Reed. At the running back position, the good news is that Le'Veon Moss has turned into a workhorse. He has very clearly been the number one running back for this team in the last 2 games. And without Marcel Reed running a lot of it's been going to Le'Veon Moss. And I don't know if I want to pay $8,000 for Le'Veon Moss when there's obviously so much can go wrong. You know, Marcel Reed could all of a sudden decide to run the ball. They could all of a sudden go back to a committee, which they've had for the last 3-4 years. It just, I don't know. I like my $8,000 running backs to be like Jeremiah Love, not or Bryson Washington or Justice Haynes. Shout out to all the guys on the main slate that are $8,000 that I really like. I just think that's a little much to pay for Le'Veon Moss in his situation. Now at the wide receiver position, again, good news. We have a team that they only throw to 2 receivers. This is what we want for DFS. Mario Craver, 32 targets. Casey Concepcion, 32 targets. No, this is even remotely relevant. You can play both of them, especially in Marcel Reed stacks. They both have shown the ability to get home in the same game at the same time. They've also shown the ability that one of them tends to have a big game every single week. So I do think that they're very playable with or without Marcel Reed. I probably wouldn't play both of them without Reed, but I do think that a Reed double stack with those 2 guys is certainly in the realm of possibilities for my lineups this week. All right, we are 3 games in. We have got 4 to go. We're going to take a quick breather and then dive into the rest of them. All right, now before we continue, I do want to mention there are a few places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. It's where I update everything having to do with the show, as well as I'm more than happy to answer any questions if you reach out to me there on Twitter. Also, I'm in the Fantasy Corner Discord. It's 100% free. The link is in the description on YouTube as well as on the audio feed. Basically, the Fantasy Corner Discord is a group of really smart, really good people who play DFS for a lot of different sports, and college football is one of them. The college football chat is always jumping. We got people talking lineups, strategies, bouncing ideas off each other, updating injuries, and then sweating it out together. It is an absolute blast. If you're looking for a community of DFS people to be a part of, I cannot recommend it enough. And then lastly, if you want to know who actually makes my college football DFS lineups, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. I post my core plays for every single college football DFS slate, as well as a full write-up why they are my core plays. And so if you would like access to that, then head on over to the Patreon. All right, game number 4 coming right at you. It is Kansas taking on UCF. The game total in this one is 54.5. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually skipped one. I don't want to skip this. Coach Prime would be so disappointed in me. Game number 4 is Colorado taking on TCU. TCU's 13.5-point favorites. Actually, maybe Dion wouldn't have been mad if I skipped this one. And the game total is 58.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 36-23 in favor of TCU. So on the Colorado side, the good news is they finally started on a quarterback, and it's Caden Salter. Why is that good news? Caden Salter does have the rushing upside to take over a game in his own right. TCU is a team that we have seen struggle with good quarterbacks, especially mobile quarterbacks this year. So I do think that this is a really good spot for Caden Salter. He does have a ton of upside, put up 41 DraftKings points earlier this season against Wyoming. So I'm absolutely in on Caden Salter. I think that's the right price tag, right game environment, and I think that with them trailing, he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton, looking to make things happen. They're not going to really run a lot of traditional run game. And speaking of that traditional run game, this is a really big committee, and it's whittled down because of injuries. Michael Welch is left standing, but he hasn't really shown us a lot of upside. 40 attempts, only 1 touchdown. Maybe he's due for some regression there. Dallin Hayden, Ohio State transfer from a few weeks back, definitely a guy that has a lot of promise. Played against Wyoming, 2 carries in that game. Didn't play last week against BYU, though. So I don't know. I'm avoiding it altogether. At the running back or at the wide receiver position, this is a team that's really, really tough to parse out at the wide receiver position. Joseph Williams for the Colorado receivers. I think they're going to be trailing against TCU, but I do think that you can avoid this situation just because it's just not a great thing to target. You just don't really know which one of the 3 it's going to be. None of them have shown a big-time ceiling so far this year. Now, the one thing I will add, though, and this is something to definitely monitor going forward, Draylon Miller did carry the ball 8 times against BYU. That may be something to monitor, but I don't know. Maybe all it means is if you're playing Salter, maybe just stack him with Miller and hope that they score fantasy points one way or another. I don't know. He's cheap. It's something to monitor. Maybe he'll make my player pool. I'm talking myself into it the longer I talk. Anyway, so let's talk about TCU. So Josh Hoover on the other side, 2 games over 30 DraftKings points so far this season, was dreadful against Arizona State. Just literally just caused me to just light my money on fire in the Friday night slate because I had Josh Hoover in almost all of my lineups. And so that kind of shows the downside of Hoover. Like, he's not perfect. He can get sacked. He can throw picks. And just wasn't a great game from him. But that's the outlier, not the trend. And this Colorado defense, I do think, is gettable through the air. I think it's a good spot for Hoover. At the running back position, I could not be less interested. This is an air raid team that loves to throw the ball. Jeremy Payne was great last game. 13.6 DraftKings points. That'll pay off his price tag. But now Kavorian Barnes is coming back, likely to play in this game. I don't have any interest if it's going to be a running back committee on an offense that doesn't really run the ball a whole lot. Now, the wide receiver position, this is going to be an injury you're going to want to monitor. It's Eric McAllister, the number 1 wide receiver on this team, at least the perceived number 1 wide receiver on this team, especially after the big 54-point fantasy point performance against SMU. So McAllister apparently got hurt like in warmups against Arizona State, played like 1 snap and like limped off the field. I didn't see it. I haven't seen a video of it or anything like that, but he did take 1 snap against Arizona State, which caused a lot of people to get angry. And so I don't know what to make of it. If he does end up playing, he's the number one target. But if he doesn't play, what it does is it creates a little funnel between the guys that are going to be getting the remainder of the targets. And it's going to start with Jordan Dwyer, and it's going to carry on down to Joseph Manjack, who was great against Arizona State. He's probably the guy that would benefit the most from it. And then also Ed Small is going to look to benefit as well and play more snaps. So if McAllister is out, it definitely creates a situation where it's a lot easier to stack Hoover with the likes of Dwyer and Manjack. Now, game number 5. Now we're finally in the right order. We got Kansas taking on UCF. Game total is 54.5. Kansas is 4.5-point favorites, meaning the implied total is about 29-25 Jayhawks. And Jalen Daniels has been one of my favorite DFS plays ever since he's been at Kansas, which dates back to about the Civil War. I don't know who's been at Kansas longer, Jalen Daniels or Bill Self at this point. But, Jalen Daniels still doing his thing and still putting up a lot of DraftKings points. And he's $8,100 against a UCF defense that is not good. I think this is all systems go on Jalen Daniels. At the running back position, Daniel Highshaw is out again for this game. LaShawn Williams really failed us against Cincinnati. He was a core play for me. He was pretty chalky at $3,900, only put up 6.4 DraftKings points. What it turned into was, because Highshaw was out, it turned into just an offensive funnel for Jalen Daniels. And so you just didn't see a whole lot for Williams. The pendulum may have swung too far on that, though. And so basically, LaShawn Williams is more likely than not to actually have a good game in this one, in my opinion. And so I think that this is a good spot for LaShawn Williams. I'm going to go back to him. Now, at the wide receiver position, good news is it's pretty obvious. Emmanuel Henderson is the wide receiver 1. Put up 41.8 DraftKings points against Cincinnati. Was great in that game. Now, Cam Pickett, second best wide receiver on the team. Huge game opening night against Fresno. Been quiet ever since. Is Cam Pickett totally dead? No. Is Levi Wentz totally dead? No. But Emmanuel Henderson's the deep target. He's the most targeted one. He's the guy you want. Very easy stacking partner with Jalen Daniels. That's what we like to see, y'all, is when we have a quarterback who can get points with his arm and his legs and has an easy stacking partner. That's a recipe for goodness. All right, now on the UCF side, they are projected to score 25 points, so I'm not going to totally discount them, but they've been just a weird offense so far this season. Taven Jackson has been starting at quarterback, but it's been mixed results. I don't know, man. Game stacks only for Taven Jackson. The running back position, you got Miles Montgomery, and man, he's got the role in this offense. He just hasn't done a whole lot with it, and he's overpriced. Last week, we saw Kansas really get had through the air in Cincinnati, and so maybe it's a Taven Jackson game, not a Miles Montgomery game. And then you got the backup running back, Jaden Nixon. He just doesn't get a lot of carries, but he breaks off explosive plays. I think he's running hot with touchdowns and running hot with explosive plays when he's not actually touching the ball that much. I think that's a cautionary tale for somebody who's that cheap to have that big of a number next to their name, but yet not actually getting a whole lot of volume. I think that's kind of a red flag. The number 1 receiver for this UCF team is Dwayne Thomas Jr. He's very consistently getting volume. If you were to look to play any UCF wide receiver, he would be the one. He's kind of the best option. DJ Black is also another one that is consistently getting targeted, but I don't think you have to do that. I think the way to play UCF this week, I'm just going to come out and say it. I think the way to play it is, if you feel confident that UCF is going to score points, or if you're setting up a game stack, just play Taven Jackson, because he can score with his arm and his legs, and he might just end up doing all the work for that team. All right, now let's talk about an actual good football game. Miami taking on Florida State in Doak Campbell Stadium. Miami's 4.5-point favorites with a game total of 54.5, meaning the implied total is about 29-25. Wow, the exact same total and spread as the last game we just talked about. That is uncanny. Anyway, on the Miami side, they've got Carson Beck at quarterback, and this is another weird one, y'all, because it feels like they're almost trying to hide Carson Beck. He's not attempting a lot of passes, and they're really leaning on the run game and their offensive line, and they're just hoping Carson Beck doesn't make any mistakes. And y'all, you can't score fantasy points at the quarterback position if you're a non-runner and you're not throwing the ball a whole lot of times. I'm out on Carson Beck for this week for that reason. Now, at the running back position, Miami does play a massive committee. It's Mark Fletcher Jr. is the 1A. No question about it. He's been really good so far this season. 3 straight games of 20 DraftKings points. Shamar Brown is also quite good. 29 DraftKings points in the Florida game, 2 touchdowns in that game. Also used in the passing game quite consistently. But now Jordan Lyle is apparently back. And he's been out ever since the Notre Dame game. If he's back, that's just going to muck up this committee even more. And even though this is a team that's going to run the football, they're going to have success running the football. It becomes a really hard situation to handicap if it becomes a 3-headed monster. Now, the wide receiver position is pretty simple. Actually, I take that back. It was pretty simple. It might not be as simple this time. So this Miami team generally pretty much throws to 2 wide receivers, Malachi Toney and CJ Daniels. Toney 27 targets on the season, Daniels 22. Josiah Trader is supposedly back for this game. He got hurt in like the first series of the game against Notre Dame. What's that going to do to the offense? Man, I don't know. But I do know it makes the other receivers, it's going to eat into their slice of the pie a little bit, and it becomes a really difficult situation to handicap. And then you've also got Elijah Lofton, this tight end that they use in all different kinds of ways. Hasn't really had a breakout game yet this season, but I could totally see it happening against FSU. This Miami team, man, them getting the bodies back healthy this week makes me want to just wait and see what happens and go from there, and maybe see if I can find something I can target next week. Now, FSU, for all intents and purposes in this game, is a very simple handicap for me. Tommy Castellanos is a mobile quarterback, can't really beat you through the air on his own. He's going to look to beat you with his legs. I don't think Miami is the type of team to let that happen to them. I'm kind of out on him. At the running back position, I think Miami significantly has an edge on the lines of scrimmage of this game. Gavin Sawchuk is very clearly the running back 1 for Florida State. Looks like a very good play at his price tag and what he's done in terms of having 2 games over 20 DraftKings points. But I just don't see Florida State having a whole lot of success running the ball. So the way I'm going to play it is I'm just going to play Deuce Robinson. He had the monster game against Virginia. He had a monster game against East Texas A&M. Really, Deuce Robinson bailed out Tommy Castellanos quite a few times for just not great thrown passes, and Deuce Robinson just having a big old wingspan, having a physicality advantage over the guy across from him, being able to go get the ball. Now, they also really use these gadget players quite well at Florida State. It's what Gus Malzahn does. Mekhi Danzy is one of those gadget players. He might break off a long touchdown. He's really cheap if you want to pay to find out. Randy Pittman Jr., elite usage in the red zone. He ran for a touchdown in the Wildcat. He caught a touchdown at the very end of the game, and he also threw a touchdown in the Virginia game. That's quite uncanny. For a guy that's got that many outs to score a touchdown to be only $3,000, makes me want to play him. I'm kind of in on him at $3,000 as well as being in on Deuce Robinson. Now, last game of the night is Minnesota taking on Ohio State. Ohio State's 23.5 point favorites. Game total 43.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 33-10 in favor of the Buckeyes. Now, at the quarterback position, Minnesota's got Drake Lindsey. Y'all, I'm just going to be quite frank. If Damon Williams and Arch Manning can't score a whole lot of fantasy points against Ohio State, why would I think Drake Lindsey can? Nothing against Drake Lindsey. I just think this Ohio State defense is really good, and I'm not going to really be looking to play him. The guy I would be looking to play if he's active is Darius Taylor. Darius Taylor the last 2 years has been like an 8K, 9K running back, one of the best fantasy options in all of college football. He gets used in the passing game a ridiculous amount. He's a really good runner. Ohio State can kind of be had with the run a little bit. And if Taylor's active, I think he's a great play. I just don't know if he's going to be active. Now, if he's not active, you've got, Fame Ijiboy. Nailed it. And he's only 4,500. He did carry the ball 12 times against Rutgers, put up 11.9 DraftKings points. And you've also got Cam Davis, carried the ball 3 times against Rutgers. So they're a little bit more of a committee where Taylor is out. But if Taylor's in, I think Taylor's a great play. The wide receiver position for Minnesota. So in week 1, I did have a few Minnesota people, well, I guess Minnesota fans, I should say. I don't want to sound like I'm Adam Schefter and I've got insiders. I had a few people who closely follow the Minnesota program reach out to me and be like, hey, you need to have Jalen Smith on your radar. He's good. He's going to catch some passes. He's their big play guy. And that would be accurate. In the 2 games where he's put up fantasy points this season, he's caught at least a 60-yard pass. So, I mean, the numbers are kind of skewed because he doesn't have a whole lot of volume. But when he shows up, when he plays, he catches bombs, and that might be what you need against Ohio State, right? Now, after that, Lameek Brockington, been their best receiver on the season. He's kind of like the mold of Daniel Jackson and Elijah Spencer that they had last year, where he's going to get a lot of volume. It's not bad for a price tag of $3,900. Javon Tracy, also not a bad option for $3,300. I do think that all three of these guys have outs to getting home against Ohio State, even if they don't score a whole lot of points, because you've got Smith with the big plays, you've got Brockington and Tracy with the volume, which is a cheat code in PPR scoring. So I do think all of those guys have outs to hitting their value in this game. Now, on the Ohio State side, Julian Sayin is kind of like, oh boy, the Buckeye fans are really going to come after me if I say this. He's kind of like Bryce Underwood South. Basically, what I mean by that is the team is not designing an offense where Julian Sayin has to go out and win them the game. They're designing an offense where Julian Sayin just has to go out and execute and get the ball in the hands of his playmakers. And that is working well for Ohio State. They're one of the best teams in the nation, probably the best team in the nation. But it's not great for DFS. Against the two Group of 5 or against the two Power 4 opponents that he's played. He's put up 9 DraftKings points against Texas, 17 against Washington, and Washington defense is not that great. I'm going to wait and see on Julian Sayin. Now, the guy I do want to play on this team is Bo Jackson. No relation, by the way. And he's been great. Carried the ball 17 times against Washington. Very much looks like the workhorse running back in this system. Ohio State has been one of the most annoying running back committees over the last half decade since I've been doing this show. Now it looks like it's Bo's to lose, and Bo probably going to have some success against Minnesota. At the wide receiver position, I mean, do I need to elaborate on Jeremiah Smith? He's the best wide receiver in all of college football. He's going to see a ton of targets. He's got a ton of touchdown equity. He's $8,500, so you're obviously paying a pretty penny for him, but he's kind of worth every penny. Leads the entire slate in targets, leads the entire slate in targets per game, leads the entire slate, or is tied for the entire slate with receiving touchdowns. So, like, he's very clearly the best receiving option on the slate. He's priced like it. I think he's totally in play. I do. I kind of think he's in play every time he's on the slate because he has that slate breaking upside that very few people have. All right, that's going to do it for the Saturday night slate, y'all. And we got done in about 30 minutes. That's not bad. All right, but like I said, that's going to do it. So if this video helped you out in any way, please hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, it helps me out a ton when you guys do that. I cannot stress it enough. And if you are listening to the audio, make sure you go rate and review. Again, helps me out so much, and I really do appreciate it. And other than that, remember, if you want more from me, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, go check out the core plays on the Patreon. But that's going to do it here, y'all. Week 6, we've got it all in the books. We've got the Friday slate covered, Saturday main slate covered. Now we got the night slate. Tomorrow night, Friday night, we are doing the live show, so come tune into that. And we've got week 5 just completely surrounded in every way. We've got it completely covered. But that's going to do it here, y'all. Best of luck to you guys on the week 5 slate. Hopefully we're able to help you guys find some winners, and I will see you guys next time.